too. They done sold out.
All right, we are live at Divine. Shalom, shalom to everybody. I see Tyler Porter. You were the first one out of the gate, sir. You beat Miss Fariba and Robert Daniels. Got Miss Marsha. Good to see you. Let's see what else we got in there. Robert Daniels says, I try to be first, but my phone was lagging. No excuses, okay? It wasn't the phone. It was operator error. Did you cut back on your coffee intake today, Robert? Because that's probably might be what it is. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe need to increase it a little bit more. But anyway, it's good to see everybody. To be here for number 41 of the Vine Bible Study. As always, we'll get Jonathan to kick us off with some prayer.
All right. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your Sabbath, your appointed time, the day we get together with fellow and like-minded believers to honor you, to praise you, and to read your word. And I just pray we continue to study to find ourselves improved, and we seek you with all of our heart, soul, and mind, and we lean on you when we lack understanding. Praise things in your Son's holy name, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. There you go. As we do all the stances of it, which is a lot. There you go. All right, so guys, we're going to be starting off in 2 Corinthians chapter 3. Be heading over to 1 Kings chapter 10, and then Numbers 33 through 36. Yeah. So anyway, let's get started. 2 Corinthians chapter 3.
All right. 2 Corinthians chapter 3. Are we beginning to commend ourselves again, or do we need, as some do, letters of recommendation to you or from you? You yourselves are our letter of recommendation, written on our hearts, to be known and read by all. And you show that you are a letter from Christ, delivered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living one, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts. Such is the confidence that we have through Christ toward God. Not that we are sufficient in ourselves to claim anything as coming from us, but our sufficiency is from God, who has made us sufficient to be ministers of a new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. Now, if the ministry of death, carved in letters of stone, came with such glory that the Israelites could not gaze at Moses' face because of its glory, which was being brought to an end, will not the ministry of the Spirit have an even more glory? For if there was glory in the ministry of condemnation, the ministry of righteousness must far exceed its glory. Indeed, in this case, what once had glory has come to have no glory at all, because of the glory that surpasses it. For if what was being brought to an end came with glory, much more will what is permanent have glory. Since we have such a hope, we are very bold. Not like Moses, who would put a veil over his face so that the Israelites might not gaze at the outcome of what was being brought to an end, but their minds were hardened. For to this day, when they read the old covenant, that same veil remains unlifted, because only through Christ is it taken away. Yes, to this day, whenever Moses is read, a veil lies over their hearts. But when one turns to the Lord, the veil is removed. Now, the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. So Trinity's back on the table.
Right.
I got several questions.
All right, guys, what you got?
I just found it interesting that in my version it says, and I gotta find it. Verse 2, where yours said, written in ink, but with the Spirit of mine says the living God, yours says the living one. So I just found it interesting.
In verse 2?
Yeah, verse 2.
Mine says, you are our letter written in our hearts, known and read by all men. Doesn't even.
Yeah, what are you talking about, sir? I'm sorry.
Might be verse 3. Oh, it's verse 3. My bad.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yours said living one, mine says living God.
Mine said living God.
In this
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you said living one when you read it.
Yeah, mine says by the Spirit of the living Elohim. And shalom there. Let's see, we got Mr. Bob Cleveland. Good to see you, brother. Shalom, shalom. And Razor 22, good to have you. Shalom. Anybody else who's online with us right now? There's Tracy Inches. Shalom, sister. And anybody else, if I've missed you, I apologize. Wasn't intentional. But give us a shout out. Let us know who's out there listening with us today. All right, what you guys got?
All right, I got seven.
Several.
Seven. Just
I'm glad I got my mini
Wow.
notepad, so I'm only able to write one at a time. What you got?
Okay. So looking at verse 11, for if that which fades away was with glory, much more that which remains is in glory. And it's talking about the tablets and stuff like that. The tablets is going into the law, correct? And all that. And this talks about the new covenant. Now, we're going to have the new covenant written on our hearts, correct? Right?
We will have the Torah.
The Torah, which
Right.
so there's nothing wrong with the law because it's going to be written on our hearts. But why does it, if that's the case, and we're going to be doing it because it's written on our hearts, why is it going to be fading? I know like the new one's going to be much better because it's already written on us. We don't have to be taught it because it's already going to be there. But why is it fading if it's already there and it's eternal?
Okay.
When you were saying that, because I had kind of the same question, but in verse 7, it seems to be alluding to something about the ministry of death, written and engraved on stones, was glorious back then. So why is it calling this quote unquote old covenant a ministry of death? It's kind of just adding to.
Isn't that sin that you taught us what sin and sin is death? That's what I was figuring.
Sin comes from death. I don't think.
But we know it's sin because it's the law. And transgression of the law is sin. So that's how that was death. At least that's how my mind is.
Yeah.
It.
I was more just like adding to the question.
Yeah.
This ministry of death.
So mine actually says ministrations of death, and the word ministration actually means helping or service of minister. So it's not actually ministry; it's ministration. Which I mean, the cleaning was made spotless by the ministrations of the cleaning lady. So this is made possible by the help of death, or by the. Does that make sense? It's not necessarily a ministry of death where they're preaching death. This is so killeth, but the Spirit giveth life. But if the ministration of death, written and engraved in stones, if this is aided by death
real quick.
through the administration, does that make sense?
I think I could make sense of it by saying the old covenant was put into place for a purpose, and that had glory, but it was to be fulfilled by something which was better, and that is good, more glorious. But in saying that, we have to remember that it wasn't like it was bad, or that certain things don't carry over, but it was. I think maybe in terms of the priesthood, it like references like, hey, that was glorious, but it generally was done by earthly priests. I'm just thinking out loud. Anybody else has anything?
Well, when you're talking about verse 17, and it made me think of the Anchor to Truth this morning. And before y'all said it, I already came to the conclusion that I never noticed that once you transgress one of the 10 commandments, you pretty much are transgressing them all in some form and fashion, if you think about it. And so thinking of this, I don't know, thinking of guess of death with that. But all right, you're talking about the glory. So Moses had the veil on him because people could not see his face because of the glory of the Father, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was listening to a sermon on this, and it was talking about that. I asked you the question. I'm trying to remember what my question was. It was saying we're only able to come boldly before the Father because of I can't remember what it was, but I thought we were only boldly able to come to the Father through Yeshua, who's our high priest, right? Isn't that the case, or am I wrong?
Yeah, Yeshua is our high priest.
But that's how we come boldly in front of
Yes.
the Father. But he was saying that no, because this person was saying no, we don't because of the glory. Like this glory was it's because of this veil that's on our eyes or something like that. But that didn't sound right to me.
All right. So what I want you to do is re-ask me the question in a way, because I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is you were
I
asking me.
several. I just asked you like 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to the first one then. Why would in verse 11,
Oh,
the
verse
law
11. Okay.
fade away with the glory? Why would it go away if that is going to be written on our hearts? We're not going to have to be taught it. It's eternal. Why would it fade away?
Right. See, for indeed it was made esteem and no esteem respect. Esteem for indeed there was much.
So I guess this is my problem with people who don't think the law is worth following, because if it's going to be so good, it's going to be written on our hearts. Why is it such a bad thing to do now? You know.
I think there's something with this ministry thing, because we see ministry of death, then we also see in verse 9 the ministry of condemnation, and then it corresponds or is what's the opposite of the ministry of righteousness, exceeds in glory. So it was made righteous, like the past tense, and I think that's talking about the ministry of condemnation that had glory, but this new ministry of righteousness exceeds that glory. So it's talking about this new ministry of righteousness is going to exceed this ministry of death / condemnation. So
Is it maybe because it's going to be so great, it's already going to be on us, and you don't have to learn it?
from what I like through my thought process.
Can I say something? So we keep calling this the ministry of death and ministry of condemnation, and I understand that that's what it says in here, but you have to think of it as transgression against God. It's not this isn't like some sort of thuggy cult where they're worshiping death. This is Yah had to place boundaries around what was going on as transgressions, whereas Yeshua came in and he is showing us how to live, as opposed to this is what God doesn't want us to do versus this is the glory of how we're supposed to be living righteously through God. So whenever we say condemnation and transgression, it's a transgressatory type situation. I think I made that word up, but okay. So it's transgression versus righteousness.
Right.
So the first one through Moses, literally laying down the law, no pun intended. He's laying down, this is everything God expects from us. And to do against what God is doing, this is transgressing God. This is how you lead to death. Here is my way through life, and it's through Yeshua. This is the new way. This is the new outlook of what we're looking at. God has given us grace. So it's glorious because instead of just having to live through a non-transitory I'm just making stuff up left and right. I know that's a true thing, right? Yeah, it is, but I don't think it means the same thing. I just used it as. Anyways, so instead of it being a restrictive way of living, where here this is what I expect. He gave us the guidelines. This is the joyous aspect of the kingdom. This is what you get whenever, like, you get the ever living life, you get the salvation and stuff like that. So
right. I'm gonna give this a stab, okay?
Yeah.
Because when you're reading his writings, they do get like, where you're trying to figure out what is your train of thought here, Paul. Because it seems like he's saying one thing and he's meaning another sometimes. What we need to understand is that there is a something called the law of sin and death that's spoke about in Romans, where people think that he's talking about doing away with the law of the Torah. He's talking about that the law of sin and death will be done away with, but everyone wants to take the word law and now attach it to Torah. And there's different laws that are out there. So he's speaking of death here. Death entered in through Adam when he ate of the fruit, correct? Death entered in. And so there is a law of sin and death. Now, with this, the Father says, I have these instructions I want you to follow. This is the Torah. But the Torah will never, quote unquote, save you from the law of sin and death. That law of sin and death, you will only be saved through what my son did and is doing for the entire world. So when we're reading Paul's letter, he talks about the esteem. I think what we're seeing is what Moshe looked like when he came down from the mountain is what every believer should look like today. If we didn't have the fall of Adam and Hava, then the glory of God actually came through them. And what you're seeing is this is what we were all supposed to look like, but this is only a temporary thing right now. So Moshe is in the presence of the Heavenly Father. He's literally, his DNA is being charged like crazy. This man's up there for 40 days with no food and water. And so, but he's being sustained by the literal Spirit of God. And so that glory of the Heavenly Father shining through his face. And so when he comes down, it's kind of freaking people out like, hey, dude, why are you glowing? Like, I don't, this isn't he went up there and got a sunburn.
Right.
And his skin's just copper looking. It's just like really bright looking. He literally has light emanating from his skin because we were supposed to be light bearers from the very beginning. And so that the glory of our Heavenly Father would shine back through us. And so when Paul's talking about these things, about the law of sin and death and about the Torah, yes, Torah will not save you, but Torah is an instruction that he has given us to live by so that through the promise of a Savior, this is why everyone pre-Yeshua, and I had this conversation with somebody before that completely didn't understand what I was saying and took it out of context. You were saved, quote unquote, before Yeshua showed up.
Mhm.
And it was through a relationship that always starts with our Heavenly Father. And so, but what it's saying is, I will send you to a holding place that we call Sheol. It's not hell. That's Dante's Inferno. That's a bunch of gobbledygook. But now we will go to Sheol, and our fathers will go and rest. It says, our fathers that go to sleep, they go to rest. All these different terminologies that they use is because when Yeshua dies and he descends down to Sheol, his glory, I believe at that moment, this is my personal opinion, his glory lit up the whole place. And literally because of what he did and who he was the only one worthy now to take back the keys of death and hell, or the law of sin and death. He's like, hey, I paid the price. Now I'm going to, at either at that moment or at some moment, I will be setting all these captives free because now I am the answer to all this. So all these other things are temporary. The blood of bulls and goats, temporary until the Messiah shows up. All these things are all temporary. The light on Moshe's face, temporary. Because guess what? The further he stays away from that source, then it just starts to fade away. And we see that the children of Israel, their hearts were always being hardened one way or another. And so their hearts are hardened to a Messiah to this day. And the majority of the group that claim to be of that group of people, their hearts are hardened towards us. And so I think what we're seeing here through this passage with Paul is like, there is life, but that life is going to come through the Spirit of God. It's not going to come through merely just following the Torah. There is life in Torah, don't get me wrong, but that salvation part of being saved, and actually when we get our glorified bodies, that fulfillment in the Spirit is going to take place at another time. And that's when the Torah will be written upon our hearts. We won't have to have these discussions like this. We're just all going to know it. You know what I mean? It's like you're going to know what the instructions of the Father are. So I think within the fabric of Paul's writings, he's kind of saying some of these things that I'm telling you now, but he goes about it in such a way where it's like you're doing mental gymnastics. Kind of like, what are you talking about, bro? What do you mean this administration of death? It's like, what do you mean by this? And what do you mean by that? And it's like, but I think ultimately what he's referring to was these are all things. The Torah itself will not save you in the end. It's not what you're getting, but you following the Torah because you have a heart for the Father and following the Father. Yeah, these will give you that admittance, or however I'm trying to think the right word, admission into the kingdom when it's all said and done. Because Jesus is very clear, real quick. Mm-hmm. Those who speak against my Torah will be called least in the kingdom. Now, either that means you'll make it, but you'll be like, hey, you know what? You could have did better. Or that means that this is my personal opinion right now. And when it says those who preach and teach the Torah will be called greatest in the kingdom of heaven, I think that's literally from the kingdom of heaven. That's my personal opinion. Like literally from the heavens, they go, hey, that's good. Literally from the kingdom of heaven, if you preach against the Torah, you're considered the least. Like this from the perspective of the heavens, that they look at that and they're like, no, that's a no-go. So I'm not saying that's a you getting in or out. That's not my pay grade. But I think when it speaks of from the heavens, this is literally from the heavens. You'll be either called great or least.
Yeah, I think obviously when we're reading some of the letters, they need to be read, in their full context. So,
Right.
It's kind of weird to we don't study that way, but read the whole book of 2 Corinthians and see if you still feel the same way about what you're thinking. And then part 2 is these letters are replies to information Paul's got. So he's answering questions that we don't know what question was asked him. So somebody might have said, well, Moses was veiled and so and so and so. And he's like, no, let me help you have a better understanding. So we're getting an answer without a question. And a lot of times when you're getting an answer without a question, you don't know the why. So I think that's where you went, where Pastor Joe says, Paul can kind of be all over the place. It's because we're getting one half of a conversation. So that'd be like listening to somebody on the phone and not hearing the other end. It sounds a little bit weird. You're like, oh yeah, that was totally funny. Wait, what was funny? You'll never know, because you have to kind of assume based on context and other cues of why that conversation is going on the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a reply to the Corinthians that we don't have the initial conversation about. Part 2 of that is verse 4. It says, such is the confidence that we have through Christ toward God. So Paul's kind of starting out saying the confidence we have through Christ toward God. So he's saying this isn't through us or by our own means, whatever. It is through Christ. So that kind of lends some credence to what Joe was saying, is it's always to God, but now we have a through Christ. Where before it was through Levitical, through law, through whatever. And that system, while yes, there was forgiveness and yes, there was salvation, you were forgiven of a sin, you were atoned for a sin, but that sin never disappeared. Where and when after Yeshua, it says, then blessed is the one who can take away the sin. So when Yeshua came and you got forgiveness post resurrection, because that was a better priesthood, he was like, oh yeah, these guys can take your sin and push it to like the back warehouse where no one's ever going to see it again. Where Yeshua would be just like, it disappeared. It was de-atomized. It didn't exist anymore. There's not even a possibility of anybody ever recalling that statement of this one time you didn't. Nope, Jesus said it's covered, which goes into one of Joe's older sermons about the Creator Fund, that legal document. It was like, no, that's, rip that thing up. It's done. You have no basis and bearing on that sin anymore. So it's definitely an interesting concept that he's trying to get across here. And then the veil, yeah, I think you kind of hit it on the head there. Is this wasn't normal, like, flashlight. You know what I mean? Like whatever was going on, this light was the that ultimate mirror, where it says when we look into the something of law of sin and death, it's whatever the first part of that is. When you're the perfect mirror or the perfect something the verse talks about, then that's like an immediate, you have to turn around. Like you can't face reality whenever you put your sinful, broken self in front of as close as we can get to perfection. And I think Moses was in a less than version of what Adam and Eve would have been, a less than version of resurrected Yeshua, where everybody was like right up there. Like as a human being that's still flesh and bone, I'm getting close to what that is, and people are like, we can't deal with that. I mean, and obviously, I think even from Moses' perspective, he couldn't deal with them in their state. So that veil was actually two-sided. It was Moses can't look on that filth and plain human when he's like, I know what it should look like. I know what it could be. So I'm veiling myself from you. You're veiling yourself from me. Because just like the Father's like, hey, you can get close to me, but here's my hand. Here's my backside. Here's the smoke. You can know about it. You can see about it, but you're not going to actually have a, eyeball to eyeball conversation. And so I think there's a lot that's playing into that. And we're just so far removed from even the thought of being glorified. We're just like, hey man, if I could just live for 20 more years, hey, if my knees can hold up, hey, if, and God's like, but I have bigger, better plans for you. If you can figure out on the earth side of how to walk in a certain way, we're going to get to that position of, well, you're getting sanctified. Yeah, I'm going to be more part of your life the more that you make me a part of your life. And I think that was one of the hardest things for the people, was that's what it's supposed to look like. And none of us are willing to do that. And and I'm not saying that God's called anybody else to do that either. So that's the other side, is we may try to put ourselves in the seat of Moses, and he's like, I didn't ask you to do that. That was his job. Your job is to live your best as a sheep herder, as a candle maker, whatever. He said, I didn't ask you to go to the top of the mountain and survive for 40 days. That was for me and Moses. No one else needs to do that. Last point was talking about their minds are hardened, stiff neck, hard mind, all that stuff. And they were like, oh, but it's a veil over their eyes. So then I think we have to be super careful. This whole conversation is weird, but we have to be super careful of not giving any group of people, regardless of what they're called, a pass.
Mhm.
oh, they just have a veil over their eyes. No. He says, but to this day, whenever Moses read, a veil is over their hearts. But, so that negates everything before it. When one turns to the Lord, the veil is removed. So he's like, oh, all you gotta do is just turn to the Lord. So yeah, you kind of started off because you were underneath the impression that your sins were going to be covered, but the temple wasn't active anymore. So if you're not getting forgiveness from Yeshua, there's no temple. Where are you getting forgiveness? You're not. So you're just piling up sins and never actually getting forgiven. Where he's saying if you're under that old law, that ministry of death, you're never covering that. That's just, you're just getting a pile that's never going away. Or now that the temple's done away, now that Yeshua is there, you have to do that route. There's not a secondary route. He's the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father, right? So he's like, if you don't pick Jesus, Yeshua, you're out. You're done. Your sins are never forgiven, and you're just stuck with it. And it don't matter what group you call yourself, how many halos you have, how many ancestry.coms you can fill out, you don't go to heaven or the new Jerusalem, whatever, unless you have your faith through Yeshua. So I think that's why he's saying, but all you gotta do is turn to Jesus,
Mhm.
and then you're good.
Verse 16. Yeah.
He's like that we can solve the problem right here, right now. So I think Paul's writing to them as a Corinthian church of they're getting pressure from paganism on one end, they're getting pressure from Judaism on the other end. He's like, both of them wrong. If you want to get right, it's the straight and narrow through Yeshua and the people of the way, the guys that I tried to kill, by the way. So I know who they are very well, and these guys got the answers, and they helped me get my answers. Now I'm trying to help you get your answers. Sorry, that was a long answer, but
I have something that I apologize if this isn't fully formed yet. So the original intention for the Father was to have us obey out of love, right? And to have the law written on our hearts. And I think that's what was attempted, but ultimately rejected in the Torah and chapter 20, when God is giving the 10 Commandments, because the Israelites back then in verse 19 say, but let not God speak with us lest we die. So they're like, we can't bear to hear, where they were scared, and they essentially rejected their creator in that moment. God was coming to them with the law and these things about how to live their lives and kind of revealing some of this plan. And they basically were like, nah, we're scared. We're not worthy of this. And so it was Moses. He went up there. I feel like it could have been everybody, right? And so from that, I think that the plan might have changed a little bit, where it's like it's intended for you to walk in the Spirit, and I think that was the intention even back then. But the Israelites rejected it, and so now you have this thing set in place where it's kind of you have this administration of condemnation, which comes from the breaking of the law, right? And then it's contrasted with the walking in the Spirit, kind of like in Romans 7, it talks about or Romans 8, talk about there's no condemnation for those who are in Messiah Yeshua. And what does it mean to be in Messiah Yeshua? He says is to walk not according to the flesh, which I think connects to ministry of condemnation or death, because being of flesh is death, right?
Mhm.
And so it says to walk in the Spirit, and I think that connects to the ministry of the Spirit that it talks about in verse 8. It says that the ministry of the Spirit is more glorious. So I think this is kind of it's a really deep connection about how there's an intention for you to walk in the Spirit, and not be conformed to the fleshly desires of the world, and the past way of God kind of working through it. But now that the Messiah has come, there's no excuse anymore. Now it's like, okay, walk forth and in the be transformed in even verse 18, transformed into the same image, from one glory to the next glory, right? So what was put in place was good before, but this is even better, because this was the OG, OG plan. So I think it's really
Original
cool.
God.
I was thinking that.
But yeah, so I think that was a pretty cool little.
Yeah, I mean, just from the very beginning, things had to change, because Israel as a nation was supposed to be a light and add to the other nations. They were supposed to be,
Right.
yeah.
Mm.
And so their disobedience, and when Moshe was up on the mountain for 40 days, and he's like, guys, kind of like, hey man, you kids are down there messing up. Like, they already trying to worship me through some other means. And so you see it. There's a shift there Now, were the Levites always called to be priests? Yes, the Levites were always called to be a minister. They were always called from the very beginning to be set apart to the Father's, to his set aparts.
Yeah, we got that in the Testament of Levi. He was like 17, 16.
Yeah.
He was either a young adult or still a teenager.
Yeah.
Whenever it was like, he will be in charge of the priesthood.
Yep, exactly.
So, there was no debate on that.
So as far as some people will say the entire nation of Israel is supposed to have been priests. I don't know, because with that, how are you going to live? How are you going to take care of animals? And the priests have a specific job that they do. They minister unto the people, but the people were to reflect God's glory by the way they were living and following the instructions from the farmers and everybody else, from the gleaning of the fields to taking care of your brothers and sisters, the orphans and widows, everybody. By the way you were living was to be a light unto the nations. And so I think the priesthood is always supposed to have been the Levitical priesthood, period. But just going back to what you're saying about all that, plans change because people change. I don't think it was the Father's plan for them to spend the next 40 years on the backside of the desert. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, I tested you 10 times. You can't even come out with one win. It's like you lost all 10, bro.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, then they want to do what they want to do. Oh, we're going in anyway. Well, I can almost see Moshe going, well, let me know how it works out for you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
God's up there reading the book. Like,
Sounds like the old AOL. Goodbye.
Right.
Goodbye.
But, so there's, I agree that there's the Father's intentions have never been able to be fully walked out with his people. And again, it goes back to, and then Paul's alluding here to their stiff-neckedness, to their, the veil being over their eyes. But the cool thing is, like we said earlier in verse 6, I think it was 16. Yeah. It says, and when one turns to the master, the veil is taken away. It says, now Yahuwah is the spirit, and where the spirit of Yahuwah is, there is freedom. And we all, with unveiled face, we see as in a mirror the esteem of Yahuwah are being transformed into the same likeness from esteem to esteem as from Yahuwah the Spirit. So, yeah, I agree with you that there's God definitely had a plan from the very beginning, and I've always said this: we're the problem with the plan.
Yeah.
It always has been. He's like, come on, man! I give you all of this, and you still want to complain? Oh,
I have a question for you
sure.
about that verse. Do you take
About what verse?
16?
Okay.
16, 17. We'd agree that that's talking about like sanctification.
What do you mean?
Like, so you like being transformed, right? So
I think it would be like their moment.
or the veil is taken away,
Yeah.
right? And then
Right.
from the veil being taken away, you go down to verse 18 where it talks about being transformed into the same image.
Mm-hmm.
Is that talking about sanctification?
I think it's the beginning of their path to salvation.
Right.
That's their day one. Hey, I'm gonna follow God or follow Jesus, Yeshua, God, all that, instead of the ways of the world or instead of the old ways of the Pharisees and whatnot. I was saying this is their conversion moment.
Yeah.
And yes, from there, then they are on their path of sanctification.
So we'd say that sanctification takes place in this life.
The process.
The process, yeah. I mean, the fullness of it's not going to be till we're all in the New Jerusalem together and given our glorified bodies. But yeah, it's like any of us. Is that process had to start somewhere, and if for a lot of us, it might have been the same process where maybe you were in a church one day and then an altar call, and you answered the altar call, and that was the beginning of your walk. Whatever that looked like for anybody. But yeah, the problem is here. It says as long as their stiff-neckedness is coming from the fact that they're going to reject the Messiah, we will lean on the words of Moshe. And it's like that veil is going to stay there because you're rejecting the one who can truly save you.
Right.
But you're going to hold to these old traditions. And they're reading, because that's when Yeshua says, hey, they'll sit in the seat of Moses and they'll read from the scriptures, listen to the words they speak, but don't do as they do.
In theory, the old traditions,
Yeah.
would still work if there was a running proper priesthood and proper.
Oh,
temple.
absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
So it's not saying that the ways are bad or the actions are bad. It's that it's not occurring correctly, therefore it's invalid.
Right.
So it's more of like it's removed based on its application, not based on its information.
Right.
And I think that's where like maybe the modern church and the replacement theology and all that kind of dispensationalism, all that, where it's like,
Mhm.
oh, that's this period and now it's gone away.
Right.
It's all bad and it's bondage and legalism, where it's like,
Right.
no, the stuff was good,
Yeah.
but the system was bad, and then the system blew up, and then the building blew up. So then that can't even work. Even if you wanted to go back and fully engage with the law as it was written, you can't. So then you would never fully get up from underneath that lifestyle. So then
Right.
the only place to go is death.
And if you want to see that veil, my personal opinion, if you want to see that veil that's still in effect, third temple wanting to be built. You know, the whole thing about the red heifers. It still amazes me how we get all caught up in the red heifer. And that isn't even like
That's not even necessary.
it's not even necessary.
Would you say this too? Like, all right, it talks about wherever Moses is read. That's a lot of synagogues and stuff like that too. There's a veil put over their hearts, but isn't one of the conditions to go and move to Israel that you can't be follow Messiah?
Right. Yeah. The Aliyah, I think what it's called.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you,
Yeah, deny.
You
yeah.
have to deny, and you have that.
Yes.
I think it's also interesting with the next one. The veil is taken away when we turn to the Lord. But I was, talking with some other people. I feel like once our eyes are opened again to the truth, then another veil is it's like a real rebirth in a way. Like,
Right.
we accept them, but when the truth really comes, it's really
Right.
another veil, and then the infinite amount of veils.
So then you're saying you have to deny Messiah. Another word for deny is anti or opposite. Anti-Messiah. That's interesting.
Messiah of Christ.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying also, because we get saved, we go to church, and then within the church, there's a veil over the church. The church has its own doctrine and how all this is done away with. So then that veil has to be ripped away. And then for those who are like, I think what he's saying here when he talks about Moses, he's basically saying when they listen to and they follow the Torah, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But this is all it is, and we're reject the one who can bring us life, actually. And he says, as long as you're doing that, then you're going to be stuck here with your eyes here. But as soon as and what it is, I believe, was when you see the Messiah and the fullness of Messiah, you're going to realize, well, yeah, we get to keep the Torah, but we also have life now through the Spirit. And now both of those come together, and it's like a beautiful match. It's that marriage.
It seems like that would be I don't know because I'm not in that position, but it seems like that'd be a preferable conversion is from you have all the Torah, then you add Yeshua, versus on our end, we have none of the Torah, we add Yeshua, then we have to then go back and relearn all the basics.
Yeah.
Right.
So yes, I'm thankful that we come through the modern church where we get the veil lifted immediately. Oh, okay.
Right.
I give my life to God, I give my life to Jesus. Cool, now I'm saved. Right. But then now you don't realize that there's the whole rest of the back of this book that you didn't have no idea about. Well, in their perspective, they would have had all the back. Technically you add Yeshua to what you're doing, and then it's pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to learn about how to eat clean. You don't have to learn about what a Sabbath day is. You don't have to learn about any of that stuff. You got that stuff down pat.
Right.
Maybe you get calendars or when does the day begin or whatever. But you're a lot better off. So it's I'm thankful for the path that I've been on and the version of it. But I mean, there has to be some I wonder if that's why Paul's so frustrated. We know this stuff. Just put Jesus in there and you're good to go. Where all these new pagan people, the Gentiles, they were like, man, I got to tell them about Jesus. Then I got to tell them about, and then they're like, well, then we got to get them circumcised. Just do the 4 things. Stop drinking blood and being sexually immoral. Come on, man.
Right.
It was so much harder to reach the pagans because you have to break them out of the world. Where the people who were following Judaism, you just had to add Jesus, and it was pretty. Not say simple because that blew their mind also, but their life was closer aligned in advance. Where the pagans, you had to come way out from paganism to then even get to religion, to then learn about Yeshua, to then add Torah.
I was just gonna
I
say,
never thought of it that way.
I think because a lot of us were called to this walk. We all know the day where it was there's something more that because I got called out of Catholicism and stuff like that. I don't want to say I disagree with you, Jonathan, because I agree with what you're saying, but having come out of Catholicism with all the dogmatic text that they have, it would be extremely hard for Jews to follow Christ because you have thousands of years of Talmud that you have to supersede.
Well, I guess I wasn't bringing the Talmud into that.
Right.
So that was
because
more
I know,
But that is a big factor, though, on their side is
Right.
Talmudic and
Right.
that's more modern. Back then, there wasn't Talmud yet.
Maimonides
Yeah,
and all those guys. Yeah.
So,
There's the world.
Yeah, there was still the wrong
Yeah.
stuff, but they didn't have
Oh, yeah.
fully codified.
So, because I'm going to tell you right now, whenever I was coming out of Catholicism, whenever I would find a church, and I would just go right back to Catholicism because it's if you guys are going to make up your own rules too, then I'm just going to go back to the ones who can at least trace everything back to Rome.
Right.
So, and
Mhm.
supposedly all the fathers and stuff like that. So,
Right.
So it would be very interesting to be back then, trying to sell this to
For the
because
first time.
right.
No one had ever heard this before.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Because especially like in Rome, where you've got like polytheism, and they're, it's funny because you got history of the world, and they're like, how poor are the Jews? They only have one God.
Mhm.
It's it's kind of a joke, but they wouldn't understand. They really wouldn't understand the relationship aspect with Yeshua, where he wants to be us to succeed, because all of their gods are demonically based. So
Right.
they all take power to get power.
So I don't have to offer my child anymore?
Right, exactly.
What?
So, and it does, just the relationship aspect would be completely foreign to them. So,
Or what's your other question?
my brain's calmed down. So now,
I'm gonna let a lot of people ask questions.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sure. I'm thinking.
Yep. Shalom, there, Mr. Jeremy Pierce. Good to see you again, brother.
All right, then we'll have a different question. So looking back at the beginning, like 1 and 2 and stuff like that, you are a letter written in our hearts, known and read by all men. So looking at us and everything, we're known, everything is shown by our fruit, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so
And love one another.
So the way we live our lives and what we show is showing how we are living in our heart condition, correct?
Supposed to be, yeah.
Okay. So if we're under your teaching
Mm-hmm.
and I go out and someone's like, oh, that's Carmen from the Vine, I should be reflecting you, who's reflecting him and all that above, correct?
To a certain degree, yeah.
To a certain degree.
But I'm gonna be like Paul. I'm glad I didn't baptize any of you guys over there. So
right, because he starts off again with, "Do we begin again to commend ourselves?"
Right.
Right. Are we high on
Yeah,
ourselves?
yeah. But I get what you're saying though, where there would be like a within the framework of a group, a certain ideology. Right.
That's it. I mean, you can love me all you want, but it doesn't matter until I accept
Mm-hmm.
it,
Yeah.
And I do it right. Okay, I'm still forming that thought.
Yeah, and I think what he's saying here too is just like what basically what you're saying says you are a letter having been written on our hearts, known and read by all men, meaning that the are pouring out on you, because it says making it obvious that you are a letter of Messiah served by us. So Paul's saying we are servants to you. So this isn't a hierarchy where I'm the man and you all going, when I show up, kiss the ring. You know what I'm saying? And he's saying, no, we are servants unto you. He says, written not with ink, but with the spirit of the living Elohim, not on tablets of stone, but of fleshly tablets of the heart. Meaning that I see, like you're saying earlier, I see the fruit in your life. So when people do see you, they're not just seeing like they're not just reading a letter going, oh, and the Corinthians, oh, I heard good things about you. It's like, no, I see good things about you. I'm observing good things about you. Paul's saying that when we were with you and we were serving you, being servants to you, that not only do we see it, but other people also see it, because this is real. This is the spirit. This isn't just something that's written down or etched in stone where there's no life. This is real life, and you guys are real life.
Yeah, I think there's an aspect of that where the faith is supposed to carry its way all the way down and all the way back up.
Mhm.
Like, and then it's kind of like the commandments. They work through all the way to the least of the commandments, and then the least of the commandments work their way back up to the top. And so, one of our, and I'm not saying you do this, but in the American modern church, in most religions, whoever the religious leader is, they're super in charge, untouchable. They get the fancy car, house, whatever. You don't speak against the Lord's anointed, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying you should do that. But when you look at Paul, when you look at the examples of the disciples and Yeshua, he's like, hey, man, I'm teaching you something different than the world's teaching you. Your leader's on the big giant pedestal, like that guy, the new Christ guy, whatever, the
Mahdi.
whatever that guy's. His teaching lecture was like 30 feet above everybody. It was ridiculous. I'm like, I'm gonna break my neck trying to listen to you. Where he's like, he's like, hey man, come in as a teacher. So when Yeshua, as a servant, excuse me. So when Yeshua was sitting at the table at the Last Supper or the Passover, he's like, hey man, I could have got my seat of prominence, right? Like the Pharisees were always doing. They wanted the best seat with the best clothes. He's like, I could have did that, but look at where I'm positioning myself compared to you. I'm on bended knee washing your feet. And so we kind of forget that, like, the Billy Grahams, these big pastor dudes, they're servants. They're leaders by position. They're servant by heart and their position, right? So it's such a weird dichotomy because our world thinks teacher, pastor, preacher, elder means you're in charge and on top, and you're untouchable. But when the Bible's saying, hey, actually, you're in the community, you're the like kind of old school, but you used to have like pastoral visits and stuff like that. Like that's serving. Hey, I'm coming to your house to pray for you. Hey, I'm coming to your house to see what's going on with your life. And I can vouch for Pastor Joe. Hey, I need some help with some drywall. Pastor Joe showed up. Hey man, I need to babysit with the kids. Pastor Joe showed up. Hey, such and such, fill in the blank. Somebody needs something. Pastor Joe's like, hey man, I got you. You need a wedding, a funeral, or whatever. That's more of what a servant is. Go ask, Hagee or any of these guys. Last time they showed up to somebody's house for dinner. Last time they put drywall up, and they're one of their congregants' house. They don't even know those people on a personal basis. So that's the one thing. And then the second part, I didn't realize I had a lot to say on this one.
There you go.
The second part is verse 17 says, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit is, the Lord is. The Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. So whenever we look all throughout the Old Testament, all throughout the New Testament, people are always talking about being led by the Spirit, or the Spirit carried me away, or the Spirit gave me a vision, the Spirit. Well, this is God moving in people's lives, and he's saying, where there's Spirit, there's freedom. And because the Spirit moves in and out throughout a permeable law, where there's 613, made up story kind of, but where there's laws in the Bible, the Spirit moves in and out through those. And he's saying, hey, for you, yeah, I'm saying be fruitful and multiply, but you don't want you to have 12 kids. You don't want you to have 5 kids. You don't want you not to have any kids because you're going to be a Paul who's going to be out in the world. So the command doesn't change, but when you're being led by the Spirit, then there's more freedom to be the full version and the full expression of who the Father is. The laws were meant to kind of build in a society, a community, which is good, like we talked about. It never said, oh, the law's bad. The law is great. But where there's Spirit, and I think that's where the Pharisees and that system kind of got off bases. They were like, the law was just there as a guide. It was a tutor, all those kind of words to help you get like out of your diapers. But then also there's freedom in the Spirit, where then the Pharisees went the opposite route. They're like, not only are we not going to keep these laws, we're going to add in a bunch of other ones to make sure we don't have no freedom in the Spirit. So then, how are you ever being led? But Paul was like, yeah, the Spirit, I want to go to Asia Minor, but the Spirit's leading me to Macedonia, wherever it was. He's like, so I have to follow the Spirit. But if he was following the law or just using his own brain, he would have never been on that trip, yada, 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 right? Who knows where the rest of that story goes. So I love that we get a Spirit conversation of that's the Father talking to you and leading you and showing you that, like, yes, I do have my rules. Don't break those. But I also want you to live in freedom, because inside of those rules, there's all kind of room for each and every person to live their own life and express their faith. Because how are you, me, Carmen, everybody here going to reach the world? We got to be individuals. We got to go and follow the Spirit. If we just all said, well, I went to the synagogue and I showed good fruit to the people in the synagogue, and then I went home and I made campus. They're like
preaching to the choir.
Right. And so I love that there's freedom in Spirit, which we think, when you're being Spirit led, there's less freedom because now you're being more restricted, but it actually opens the door and saying, it's good to do good. There's so much good to do. Let the Spirit lead you into all things good, versus I followed the law and I did it perfectly. He's like, yeah, but did you go and that guy who walked up to you and said, can I have a burger? And you're like, no, because blah, 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 fill in the blank. I was too busy following the law. If I'd taken one more step, I was breaking the Sabbath law. So if you can come to me, I can hand it to you, but I got to stretch because I can't take any more steps. I'm going to break the law. Say, hey, man, go get the dude a burger and then tell him about the Lord.
I would add to that real quick. Is like giving that guy a burger would be fulfilling a lot more. It's like you're not following the law if you don't give that guy a burger.
Right? But if you didn't want to break the rule too many steps, because
so
you're busy
too much on one side of the law and not the other, then it's contradictory. It's a paradox. I wanted to kind of take a look at like the middle of verse 7. It's talking about how the children of Israel could not look steadily at the face of Moses because of the glory of his countenance, which glory was passing away. So he's talking about the glory was passing away. I don't know if that relates to this temporary covenant in a sense. Because like the glory passed away so that it could be fulfilled by a greater Spirit. I don't know. I just thought that was interesting to look at. If anybody has ideas.
Let me just read to you what mine says. It says, but if the administering of death in letters engraved on stones was esteemed, so that the children of Israel were unable to look steadily at the face of Moshe because of the esteem of his face, which was passing away. I'm not sure what is it that you're asking is like.
I think this goes back to what you were talking about, how God's glory would show up and they weren't able to look at Moses. But unlike Yeshua, who walked in the full glory of God, Moses didn't. His glory would fade after time, and that's what I think this is referring to.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
because after a while, so Moses was able to be in the presence of God, but the Israelites were not. So he would have to veil himself, and then that kind of was what you were talking about earlier, where eventually the glory of God would fade from him, and he would stop illuminating or whatever was going on, and they could look at him again.
I think that's tied to the spirit, like the spirit not being in fullness, and why they were kind of they needed to look forward to a Messiah.
Waiting for that.
Gotcha.
All
All right. I'm not even sure if I'm going to see this right or not.
Go for
Let's see.
Wrong. Spirit beats.
What does that say to you? Banana? Banana? Parma?
Banana Parma.
Banana Parma. Like
Banana
I farm
Parma.
bananas, like
It's
I
just an
farm
H.
bananas.
Okay.
It's a regular banana with an H.
Yeah.
Okay.
Banana farm.
Okay.
We do.
Maybe.
Hello from the Queensland, Australia. Good to have you. Shalom, shalom.
Oh, for sure.
I have restraint. I will not do monster.
Did you remember that?
That is
question?
awesome.
Carmen?
I had so many in
Hmm.
I've been thinking about this all week long.
All right. So you got anything else?
5 o'clock in the morning.
It's what? 5 o'clock in the morning. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, you really have.
Yeah. Got that Australian coffee.
You know, I wonder, I mean, if you guys don't know, shadows was kind of a fun thing for me. I kind of been walking down that. If you read through scripture all the time, there's light and shadows and all that. And it says the Father is light, and within there's no shadow or variation. So I wonder how that plays a factor with, okay, when you're best buds with the Father, right? Moses was best bud. They had a camping trip together, 40 days and 40 nights, and then 40 years after that. But if there is no shadow of variation and you're walking in that same light, you know, it's kind of no wonder that you're going to then what's the one thing, like you are the company you keep type of thing, you know, and bad company corrupts morals. Yeah. So then the opposite would also be true, is when you're with the Father, with the Son, you're going to be conformed into that image. So I think when we read that verse 18, he says, are being transformed into that same image, going from one degree of glory to another. So that was a degree of it, but then there's still yet another better version, because Moses was still on earth.
Right.
Moses still didn't make it to the promised land. Moses still was acting up a little bit, where he's like, that is a degree of glory. So we never say fullness. You know,
Right.
Moses received the fullness of glory, or Yeshua walking in the earth at the fullness of glory. It took death, burial, resurrection to then have fullness. Moses still couldn't walk through the walls, right? He still was like a image. So it says he was being transformed, but for this comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. So it's like there is a time whenever you're going to be, spirit and water, and you know you're gonna lose the blood, the flesh, the dirt part of your humanity. So you leave the dirt behind, goes back to the ground, and then now you're transformed into that image. I wonder if that's just that whole thing of like being in His presence, being in His company is like, yeah, you also then don't have no shadow of variation. That people are like, I don't know what to do with this, right? This isn't, you don't even look like a normal person. You don't have like shadows and depth to you. You know, you're just like, oh, I don't know. I'm sure it was a lot for the people to deal with. And then now they just finished worshiping a false god, or their interpretation of a god. Moses shows up looking like orb. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like, I don't know, do we worship Moses now? And he's like, oh well, Jay,
Whoa,
put a
whoa,
put a
whoa,
veil over me.
Right.
Don't even look at me. You guys are crazy. Let me help you out. Whenever I get back normal-ish, then you can see me again. Realize I'm just normal. Don't worship me. I'm not gonna make it either. So we all gonna be dead.
All right, guys. Well, it's that time. We need to switch over to 1 Kings chapter 10.
Chapter 10.
Hey, you know what? Let me have the illusion that it won't be that bad.
A lot of,
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
First
reading.
Kings chapter 10.
Yep.
All right. You got notes and stuff? You cheating? This old plain blank Bible. I got to make it up on the spot.
Oh, clean the cat food.
Huh?
Thank you.
Oh, I get it.
All right. First Kings chapter 10. Now when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon concerning the name of the Lord, she came to test him with hard questions. She came to Jerusalem with a very great retinue, with camels bearing spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she told him all that was on her mind. And Solomon answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. And when the queen of Sheba had seen all the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, and the attendance of his servants, their clothing, his cupbearers, and his burnt offerings that he offered at the house of the Lord, there was no more breath in her. And she said to the king, the report was true that I heard in my own land of your words and your wisdom. But I did not believe the report until I came and my own eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told me. Your wisdom and prosperity surpassed the report that I heard. Happy are your men, happy are your servants who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be the Lord your God, who has has delighted in you and set you on the thrones of Israel. Because the Lord loved Israel forever, he has made you king that you may execute justice and righteousness. Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold and a very great quantity of spices and precious stones. Never again came such an abundance of spices as these that the queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. Moreover, the fleet of Haran, which brought gold from Ophir, brought from Ophir a great amount of almug wood and precious stones, and the king made of the almug wood supports for the house of the Lord and for the king's house, also lyres and harps for the singers. No such almug wood has come or been seen to this day. And King Solomon gave to the queen of Sheba all that she desired, whatever she asked, besides what was given her by the bounty of King Solomon. So she turned and went back to her own land with her servants. Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold, besides that which came from the explorers and from the business of the merchants and from all the kings of the west and from the governors of the land. King Solomon made 200 large shields of beaten gold. 600 shekels of gold went into each shield, and he made 300 shields of beaten gold. 3 minas of gold went into each shield, and the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. The king also made a great ivory throne and overlaid it with the finest gold. The throne had 6 steps, and the throne had a round top. And on each side of the seat were armrests and 2 lions standing beside the armrest, while 12 lions stood there, one on each end of the step, and each end of a step on the 6 steps. The like of it was never made in any kingdom. All King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. Silver was not considered of anything in the days of Solomon, for the king had a fleet of ships of Tarshish at sea with the fleet of Haran. Once every 3 years, the fleet of ships of Tarshish used to come bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Thus King Solomon excelled all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom And the whole earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put into his mind. Every one of them brought his present articles of silver and gold, garments, myrrh, spices, horses, and mules, so much year by year. And Solomon gathered together chariots and horsemen. He had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, whom he stationed in the chariot cities, and with the king in Jerusalem. And the king made silver as common in Jerusalem as stone, and he made cedar as plentiful as the sycamore of the Shephelah. And Solomon's import of horses was from Egypt and Kew, and the king's traders received them from Kew at a price. A chariot would be imported from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. And so through the king's traders, they were exported to all the kings of the Hittites and the kings of Syria. Kyle, go ahead. Well,
Wait,
actually,
that's-
hold on.
Like the 3 year stops.
Is that not where it stops?
Did they bring them out by their means?
Oh, okay.
There, okay.
All right, Kyle, can you try to go now?
I can try.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, sorry. It was so long that the speaker turned off.
I got you. Okay. So I know that the talent thing conversation is probably going to come up, but so let me give, for those that don't know what a talent is, let me give you an understanding of that. So I know that number 666 is used, but it's not that it's insignificant, but it's probably not as significant as most might think potentially. I don't know. Let's just put it like this. So what is a talent of gold? So obviously gold is a precious metal, but what is a talent? So
75 pounds.
let's go in another version of that. So a talent, as in like parable of the talents type thing. A talent is equivalent to, at least in the day of Yeshua, would have been the equivalent of 6,000 denarii, or roughly, or actually exactly 20 years of labor, 20 years of work. So whatever the equivalent of that is in gold, so 6,000 of those times 666, which is 3,996,000
pounds.
In other words, a day's wages for almost 4 million people is what that is. Yeah, or almost 4 million days' wages. That was a lot, but she brought it in gold, so obviously it wouldn't have been as much coinage. But yeah, that's a lot.
I'll go with Jonathan's 75-pound bricks
75
just to save space. Think about the sheer labor involved in bringing that much resources, and that's just the gold she brought.
Right.
I was wondering
Mm-hmm.
with that. Are you finished, Kyle, or I don't want to? I had something to ask about that.
Well, let me throw in this one last thing, and then I'll shut up. The average daily income in the U.S. is not a single fixed number, but can be estimated based on average annual salaries, hourly wages, yada 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 yada. Anywhere from $50 to $192 a day is the average in the United States, right? So if we just took that and multiplied that times, let's say 50, which is kind of the low end, that's the equivalent of 199,800,000. So yeah, I would assume that the value of it was probably much more than that, but
$1 million.
So yeah, it was probably, by the time it was all said and done, it was probably the equivalent of what we would consider today, probably around $300 to $500 million worth of gold is what would have been given to him.
Okay, it's not too bad.
That's not too shabby.
Right?
Well,
Okay.
what I find humorous in this though is the fact that it says that silver was so common it was like rocks on the ground. Oh, you're paying me with silver, peasant.
Well, and then that's what they bought all those horses with. They were like, "Oh, it's 300 pieces of silver." Like, okay, like
Literally throwing bags at them.
Yeah,
It's
how many
like
horses can you give me? Because I have no ending amount of silver.
speaking.
My thing, wondering about this. So I saw that there's 2 other times that number is mentioned. Of course, Revelation, but I think either Ezekiel or Ezra, something like that. And when you look at that, and I was just thinking of Revelation, and y'all probably talked about this before. This is my first time with y'all. That was about the man of lawlessness, right? And didn't Solomon, would you say this is like the beginning of his downfall in a way? Like he was not supposed to have that many horses. He wasn't supposed to have so much wealth and all this. And then we see he goes and he gets the extra wives and all that kind of stuff. Like, was that him starting to go against the law?
I mean, you said that. I don't know anything about the story, but I immediately looked at the next chapter in verse 6. It said Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord. So I thought that was interesting. Where you're like, this is the start of it, and the very next chapter is like the first evil thing that he did.
Because he was supposed to write Deuteronomy out, right? Isn't that the thing of the kings? They're supposed to write that out on paper, and so he would be familiar with everything.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. Do I think it's the beginning of him like heading the wrong direction? Yeah, it looks like what you're saying when we get into chapter 11 next week. You're going to start seeing where Solomon's starting to mess up, he's starting to goof up.
Did
Even
he get a tattoo? Was that the issue?
yeah, no, that's probably been the least of his worries. And then Miss Karen, shalom to you. It says, and that is where this is what Miss Karen says, and that is where I get really suspect about Solomon. Kings are not to multiply horses to themselves.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, remember that? Wasn't it like not so much gold or something like that? And was it military too? I can't remember.
Well, I think again it goes back to the purpose of why you have all this. Is it just
Right.
to show off? Is it to brag? Is it?
Well, didn't it say
Or
like
was it
the
for
one?
glory of God?
He already spent double the time on his house than he did.
He said he's stationed in chariot cities. They had so many horses and chariots. There was that city, that whole place for
You
chariots.
see that? Yeah, the sign post up there with the multiple signs. And one says the
Horses.
city. The horses are the city of chariots. It's like,
Right.
oh, that way. Okay.
It was the beginning of Trojan.
Right.
Kyle, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add in there. As far as the man of lawlessness, there's there's potential for that number to have been inaccurately put in the books. So 6, it could be 616 is another option instead of 666. So that's a thing. But I do think this was kind of the beginning of his downfall. I don't think it was. Personally, I don't think it was the richest because he was already very, very rich, very wealthy, right? I think that this was, personally, I think this was a pride thing. This was, okay, I have kings and queens coming in and bowing before me and speaking of my greatness from miles away. Me, how good I am. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I think this was a pride thing. I don't think this was a money changed him kind of thing. I think he got full of himself because he was built up so much by others. And that's where we got to maintain that humble, when the Father, everything that he had was because of the Father. Right. So the Father props us up. We have to give glory to the one that provides, not us for having.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Nebuchadnezzar, with him walking on top of his castle wall one day, and he goes, "Oh, look at everything that I made." And God's like, "Really?
No.
Time for you to eat with the beasts of the field, my boy." So yeah, it's about you were blessed, but you need to remember who that blessing comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of, sorry.
Okay.
No, because this is me skipping ahead,
Okay.
cheating.
All right. So, Kyle, to your point, that was kind of where I was going to go a little bit with this section is, when Solomon being ordained and all that, he had that same issue with David. Like there's the good guy and the bad guy, and there's the usurpation of power. And then they're like, well, sorry, Solomon's the dude, so we don't care what you're trying to do and establish yourself. And then when Solomon's anointed and all the other good stuff, and he's like, hey, what do you want? Hey, help me to understand. Help me, give me wisdom. And God's like, cool, wisdom. Now, all good gifts are from the Father, and he says the gifts. I think we read in somewhere in the New Testament. Forgive me for not knowing the reference, but the gifts are meant for other people. Their gifts are meant for those in the body. We're not supposed to take our gifts and give them to ourselves, or we don't eat the fruit of our own tree. So when you look at Solomon here, when I read this one, I don't think there's anything wrong with like hosting a foreign national or like a leader from another group.
Mhm.
But the way this whole story is playing out is he's not just saying, hey, we're the people of God. We're the people of Israel, at least the way it's written. Now, he might have done all this stuff and we don't know about it. But it's almost like, ask me whatever you want because I'm so smart. I'll be able to answer all your questions, which to Cal's point, that's a little bit of pride kind of kicking in. And then, she just leaves with the gifts that they transferred gifts, and then she leaves. Where, you don't really get a story of like, oh, and then she was, there was salvation, or she understood that there was one true God. That's where he got all his wisdom. But he never says, I received this wisdom from the Lord. It's because of him I have all things. I'm able to answer your questions. And the reason I'm answering them is because I want this to bring you to the Father. It was more of like, I answered all your questions and look what all I've been able to do. And then you bring me stuff and I'll bring you. But look how much, it did kind of seem like the whole scenario kind of flowed to the left, where I think that's where some of his downfall comes in. It's not like I'm going to continually give credit back to the Father. It's I'm the smartest dude. No, I know all the stuff. And I think that's where he wasn't wrong for doing it, but I think the fact that it never went backwards, and whenever went back to the source, I think maybe that was probably more of the downfall than it was just telling her a bunch of stuff.
But didn't yours say that the breath was taken out of her whenever she got all the knowledge? So
Yeah, well, I think she was just
exasperated.
She was just like,
talking. Yeah.
oh
I mean,
my, one of those.
Are we all kind of like that whenever we get we're amazed by what the Father reveals to us? And she was getting that.
But I don't think she was getting me personally. I think she was just seeing Solomon as a king. Like she's like, hey, I'm a queen. I'm around a whole world full of kings. You're just a really, really good king. You're such an awesome king. Your servants actually like you. You actually have all this stuff. People will bow down to you. That's cool because of you. She never said that's cool because of him.
Well, she said, "Blessed be the Lord your God."
Yeah.
So
she
I
didn't
just
know.
interject.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it wasn't there at all, but I think that's why his downfall kind of started with that. Is he was constantly like, I'm buying the horses, I'm getting the stuff, I have all the answers. I just feel like there was a little bit of, like Kyle's point, a little bit of pride where he was the mirror was shining on him more than it was on the Father.
I think we're kind of getting a week ahead of ourselves, because in the next verse it actually tells you like what actually causes his downfall, because it's his wives, his multiple wives.
Well, they're
Right.
a hint.
They pull him towards other.
So the reason, one, I do try to isolate the chapters because I can cheat a little bit. I heard you, but I think because of that pride issue and that I have the answers,
Right.
then in his own mind, I can have all these wives because I have the answers, because I will know what to do.
What happens?
I will be able to figure this out. All these multiple variables, I've got this. And so, did he say, "Hey, Father, should I have all these foreign wives from foreign lands and foreign religions?" He just said, "I'm so wise. I'm going to be able to roll the dice and then still win."
Oh no, there's a verse that I was looking at kind of support that. In verse 24, he's talking about how kind of like made a spectacle out of his wisdom. Like it said, all the earth shout the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom. So he's like hosting a carnival every year. It's like, hey, ask the wise Solomon question. Look at me. So yeah.
Well, and I think, and Kyle, you can go after this. I think, when you juxtapose Solomon versus Yeshua, they kept, hey, Yeshua, give us a sign. Yeshua, tell us of your vast wisdom. Do a miracle. Show us magic. And he's like, let me ask you a question. Would you believe da 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 da? So Yeshua flipped it back on them and made them introspective. Where Solomon was like, no, keep the eyes back on me. He's like, would the Father have sent me if he didn't have love for you? I think Yeshua's version, because who had more wisdom? Let's be fair. Who had more wisdom, Solomon or Jesus?
Jesus.
You know what I'm saying? But did Yeshua ever walk and talk like that? Did he ever keep pointing the finger back? And he's like, hey, it's not even. These aren't even my words. He's like, I'm here on behalf of I'm like literally I'm parabolic I'm being right now. I'm a robot for the Father. He's got the controller, and I'm just doing what he says. These aren't my words. These aren't my actions. These aren't my thoughts. I mean, if you've seen me, you've seen him. So I'm just following him perfectly. Solomon's like, if you've seen me, you've seen me. And keep looking at me. You know, what else do you want to see? You want to come by and see my horses, my whole city of horses? Come back and look at me. I think, you know, that's where we can see when we put those two together. They're two of the wisest people that ever walked on the earth, because Jesus was a real human being. They walked on the earth. Their lifestyles look totally different. Now, Solomon was a king, so of course his lifestyle is going to look different. Yeshua was local, homegrown. But yeah, Kyle.
I was just going to throw in there. There's you mentioned that there wasn't really a lot to this story. There is other what's the word? I don't even want to say possibilities, but there's ideas out there. There's theories out there. Let's use that word. That'll work. There's theories out there that Queen of Sheba and Solomon hooked up. Yep. And
I was always one of those people that believed that. In fact, whenever we just read this, I was like, wait a minute.
Well, she was singing the song, "Take My Breath Away."
So anyway, the offspring or whatever became what we know as is. There's been a couple of different nations or nationalities or whatever that have been looked at as potentially the love child or children of the Queen of Sheba and Solomon. So I think Ethiopia is one of those that some people believe.
Cool.
You said Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Yeah, because isn't that where supposedly like the books of Enoch and all, you know, they've always had some kind of connection back to the priesthood or Levites or something.
Mm-hmm.
They've always somehow they got God down there where like a lot of the other African nations not so much.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and Miss Fariba, I saw your question. I was trying to get to it. I see that Miss Karen about the apes and monkeys. Mine says and peacocks. Mine says apes and baboons, and baboons. But
Solomon did a red butt after this.
let's see, where was it?
Shekels, vessels, horses.
Yeah, Miss Karen said novelty, more than likely. Yeah, it was just rich people doing rich people stuff, I think. Yeah, like Jonathan just said, I guess like a zoo, rich people always want grandeur and things others can't have as a flex. I have a baboon. What do you have? I got a squirrel.
Yeah, it was like, you know, and even then it's like regional. Like I was watching a documentary on World War II. And Stalin, like in the middle of their conference, they were like, "Oh, you don't have any lemon for your martini." He was like, he brought them a lemon tree. Like, and this is in Soviet Russia. There was no such thing as a lemon tree. He was like, "That's how much of flex I've got. That I got so much power and control. I can bring you a tree in the middle of war from a land that we don't even own. Just by the way, I got it like that. You know." And I think that's what Solomon's doing. He's like, "Oh, monkeys aren't even from here, but I got monkeys." You know, like, you want to see
monkey burgers,
right? And you see like the rich warlords and stuff today. You know, they got like a tiger on a chain. You know, and they're like sitting down. They got like, yeah. What are you doing with a tiger in your house? You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. But you're like, because I can and you can't.
Right.
You can go wait in the car.
Yeah.
Camels.
There is none. He's got
servants.
millions of servants.
Yeah, that's spotless.
It's spotless. They probably didn't even realize they can't. Never mind. Wait a minute, the tiger poops.
That's what to catch it.
Right.
Miss Cleveland said that she says our neighbors to the south had camels.
Camels are awesome.
Well,
They spit, don't they? Like llamas?
Well, they normally show up on Wednesdays.
Banana Pharma says we got the most camels in the world. The Arabs brought them over.
Oh wow.
They says they thrive in Australia.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like whenever I lived in New Mexico, we had oryxes all over the place because they were trying to repopulate oryx. They're those animal, like we actually like some of those shofars are made out of their horns. It's the real.
Like the one I have.
Is it real long and just straight?
Oh no no
Yeah,
no
I've-
no,
yeah.
no! I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we had those.
Yeah.
And there's another antelope-ish
Ibex.
species that ibex. That's what it was. Yeah, that used to run around.
Not the movie theater.
Yeah.
That's IMAX.
I know. I know.
I think
I want to go to the IBEX.
the first two must be interesting, at least to me. When she talks about, she spoke with him about all that was in her heart, and she's a monarch, you know, and all the stuff with your people and everything on there, like, man, the heavy is the head that wears the crown and all that kind of stuff, and just going and talking about it and having another one, and then isn't there the theory about she has a son by him or something, and all Ethiopians are Jewish?
Yeah, that's what we were bringing up.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. It just makes it more valid. And I think, you know, the other part is like, you know, if you're a foreign
Daniels.
sovereign and you have an opportunity to ask questions like, hey, there's political unrest in my country, what should I do? And then Solomon's like, bring the baby and chop it in half, you know, or at least, you know, threaten it. That's how I dealt with my problem. I'm not saying that, you know, but can you imagine being able to ask a question like, you know, we can ask Google or ChatGPT and we get a somewhat garbage answer or a scripted answer that the government wants you to read, where you're able to talk to a wise person. It's like, so if you're having an issue with water, make a dam, divert the water 30% this way and 70% this way. She's like, oh, that sounds like a plan. And then it works. Like whatever Solomon would have told you to do, it would have worked. So you know, of course, foreign leaders and dignitaries are like, sorry, we've been dealing with communism. We've been dealing with fill in the blank. What do we do? And he's like, oh, just this and this and that. Give them food, give them bread. And the people who make the bread will then trade for the chickens. It'll all work itself out. And the foreign leaders are like, we couldn't solve this with all of our wise men. And you just gave us an answer. So, I mean, it's no wonder people would come to him. You would just hope that he stayed on the straight and narrow.
To have an actual person to talk to who understands, because how many people can understand what a monarch thinks?
Right.
Yeah.
We're stuck on monkeys.
Police Squad TV show where they can't figure something out, so they keep going to the shoe shine guy, and he just knows everything about everything. And there's a priest shows up and asks him a theological question, and then Dick Clark shows up and asks him what ska music is.
The only other thing I didn't realize until I read this is how all the movies and all seem to copy the throne like it's an 18, you know, how it's round, 19, and all that kind of stuff. But again, the 12, always have 12.
I wonder in Solomon's kingdom, like how much he took personally. Like, I almost messed that word up. The consolidation of power.
Right.
You know, did he keep it all in house, or did he like, hey, I'm gonna give you this role, this role, this role, and then you guys come to me every day, and I'll give you like your marching orders of wisdom, and then you go out. You know, or did he's like, no, it's all come to me only.
Dude, that's funny because that's actually a crazy good question, because it's like, if he is the smartest man alive, he literally knows how to conduct ceremonies better than the priests. He knows how to do all of this stuff. And he doesn't interact with God like he's not a prophet, right? He's just a very, like, God did give him his wisdom.
Right.
But his wisdom seems like almost like a what's the word I'm looking for? Where you have the ability to, like, a discernment, like he fully understands.
I think it was more that than smart. Like,
Right.
He didn't figure out gravity or
Like, exactly.
atomic bombs, or nothing, but he was like, given these choices, I can give you the wise thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So he has a very knowledgeable outlook on things, on how, like, a pragmatic approach to things.
Mm.
Yeah.
So-
well, how it said that she was amazed with even like the way he had his servants and all that kind of stuff, like
Right. They just enjoy being
the
around him.
devil's in the details and
Right.
like the organization and all that, like how it must have blown her away. Because we're always looking for something better. I remember when I was going into school administration, like how to run lunch, how to do this, make
Right.
everything easier, it makes life better.
Well, and like, I know there's a modern business principle. If you want to see how it's run, see how the employees act and what they have to say about the management. So,
Oh yeah. Well, like, was it so like Secret Boss or whatever?
Secret Boss.
Undercover Boss.
Undercover Boss, yeah.
But you know, it's funny is when they do those shows like that, the managers learn a lot about.
Yeah,
they're
they
like,
do.
oh, if I wish I could have known this, and the only way to know it is to get down there with the people.
Yeah. Kaizen.
So yeah.
What's the saying? People don't leave jobs, they leave managers.
Yep. 100%.
Mhm.
What is the book of the Acts of Solomon?
What?
The book of the Acts of Solomon. I'm cheating. I saw it. It's in chapter 11. It talks about the books of the Acts of Solomon. Verse 41.
I was not kept my. Wait,
11. Chapter 11.
chapter
I'm
11.
sorry.
What
Verse
verse?
what?
Verse 41.
Oh, 41.
Are they not written in the book of
Yeah.
the Act of Solomon?
Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
We have a lot of books that
Keep
are
that.
mentioned. Yeah.
For next week.
Yeah.
We're not going to have anything to talk about next week. And we're going to have to sit here staring into the
Homework.
camera and be like,
Homework, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
bring it. I'll bring it.
shadow puppet. No
Go
shadows.
go find the book.
I'll
Find
No,
it.
I'll tell you where the book's at. It's at the Vatican.
Oh, sure.
It's underneath the Vatican,
Yeah.
tucked away.
Yep.
Never to be read again.
Do you think? Because I mean, it's referring. Well,
Sorry.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of stuff surrounding
okay.
Solomon with the star and the wisdom
Oh, yeah.
and the ring and all kind of stuff, and I wonder if it's in that stuff, but then it's kind of referring to it as like good-ish. So, like, I want,
Yeah.
What?
All right, guys. So we need to head over to questions and context.
Number.
33.
Numbers 33. If you like the numbers, here we go. Yep, so we'll be in Numbers 33 all the way to the end, 36.
What?
Yeah. All right.
So if you guys online, if you're new or not familiar during the questions and context, since you guys aren't here, type in the chat with your question, or if you have a point of context that adds to the story going on in 33 through 36. We will answer your question, even if it's, I don't know. You will for sure get an answer. Until there's too many of you guys, but for now, you're good.
Yep.
Man, I tell you what, if I was still like having kids, I would start pulling out some of these old school biblical names. Like, have a son named Zelo, and it's short for Zelo Fahad.
Oh, okay.
Zelo Fahad Freeman.
Yeah. What about Dorcas?
No, not so much. Not so much.
Man,
Not so much. Not so much Dorcas or Hagla.
Okay,
Hagla's never getting a husband.
gotcha. I was gonna help you out.
Alright, this may be a silly question, but when they talk about like when they can't get the coat, is that where we got the coat from?
I didn't bring a coat.
Like in 33:5, and the sons of Israel journey from Ramses and can't visit the coat.
Yeah.
I just wondered.
Because it is the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Booths, but then like a lot of times like Meribah, it was like the where the waters or whatever. So a lot of times they would name the place based on the event or the occasion. So then they were Sukkoting at a place, then it was called Sukkot.
So does that mean they were traveling until that time of year, and that's where they stopped?
Well, I think so. They were constantly traveling. It said the tabernacle would move sometimes days,
Yeah.
sometimes weeks, sometimes
Or did
months or
they like
years.
stop and wait there like 8 days, like we do?
Sounds like
I'm sure that they would honor that feast time, yes.
Yeah.
So they travel.
But just remember, Sukkot is dealing with a temporary dwelling.
Right.
So that's literally what they were doing the entire time that they
Yeah.
were in the desert. They were in a temporary dwelling.
They would have kept
But then you would have the
year.
feast of Sukkot in remembrance of everything that took place at the time of their exodus. So
So like we say camping, they say Sukkot.
Did they glamp?
I'm just gonna look back down at the.
yeah,
I would-
the Lord walked
I would
amongst
put
them.
big-
That was the best version of camping you can have.
So
Yeah.
not the air conditioned RVs.
You know, I sometimes I do wonder if when God was walking through, like, if He made their experience awesome. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we kind of look at camping and then go like, oh, okay, it's hot, it's terrible, water's, you
kind of
know.
where you live at.
But right, but I'm saying, even then, like, you know, you're dealing with so much stuff. I wonder if there was some like protection, like there was some supernatural winds that would blow, so that way the evenings were nice and the fires were warmer. You know what I mean? Like,
Presence was there.
yeah, because why would He put them in like misery? And they were just like,
Are you
"We hate-
freezing?
we hate this.
Think about like
It feels like death. Just hurry up and kill us or let us die."
Well, I feel like they're acclimated to this weather. Like that's just how.
Well,
they
that too, of
back
course,
then.
yeah.
So
Well,
I don't
another
think it's
thing-
that bad.
yeah, think about how they dress over there and how all of their stuff is set up. So you would have tents made out of fabric that were breathable.
Right.
So, and then you would cover them. So it's basically like an air conditioning system that goes through. So,
I mean, I said I get the logic. I just
Right.
wonder if God also then like gave you
Yeah.
a little wink, like,
yeah,
hey, I made sure it didn't rain on you and flood your camp because
Right.
that could have happened.
or it was
He's
boot
just
camp
down.
for 40 years. So,
that was their fault.
We shouldn't have the problem with flies this year like we did last year, should we?
What's that?
Because of where we going. Remember last year? We shouldn't have a problem now.
Oh, that was dragonflies.
No,
No,
no.
wait.
Oh, remember the strip?
When we were at the
Flies?
state park
Oh,
last year,
when was it with the dragonflies?
that was like 3 or 4 years ago.
dragonflies are awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was cool. It was like
Yeah.
watching Star Wars.
Yeah, because they
and
eat
live.
mosquitoes and all sorts of stuff.
What you got, Kyle?
I was gonna go back to this Solomon thing. We have this mention of the talents, and then Yeshua is given the parable of the talents. And in that parable, he mentions basically if you don't use what Father's given you, even what little you have will be taken away. So Solomon was given wisdom. That's what he asked for, right? He was the most wise of any at that point. But he was given all the other stuff too. He starts going down the road of getting all these wives and making really, really dumb decisions. Do y'all look at this as wisdom departing from him, or is this how does this work out in you guys' minds as far as the wisdom? Because he's making some very unwise choices. So is he defying wisdom? Is he defying the wisdom that is in him, or has wisdom, systematically or all at once just left him because of?
No, I think because if we do, skip ahead a little bit, it says he's heavily influenced by his wives, and Yah warns him about following these paths, and he refuses to give up his love for them. So I think what's happening is Solomon, despite having his wisdom, he is having to walk out the consequences of transgressing what he's been told.
Mm-hmm.
So because Yah warns him about going down this path in
Right.
chapter 11:11.
Well, from the day he was
From
king.
the right from the day he was king, because he's warning him about doing this stuff and following this path. So whenever we do get into next week's chapter, you see just what goes on and how he falls, and it's him having to walk out his transgressions against what Yah has warned him about since day one.
Yeah, and just like a super quick answer to that, like all gifts from God, if used for God, will turn out good. But
Right.
it's like, like if you're a charismatic, gifted speaker,
Mhm.
you can have an Obama speech, a Hitler speech, or preach the best sermon that's ever been preached.
Right.
That's the same skill, that's the same talent that you've
Absolutely.
been given, but it's not how you use it. So I think in Solomon's mind, he was like, dude, I'm still able to maintain kingdom. I still got the tabernacle, I still got my house, I still got all these women, and the nations are still coming to me like, what's up, dude?
Yep.
So he's still the given gift of wisdom was still active. He just wasn't using it appropriately. He wasn't using it in the way that he should have. I don't think he was just sucked away, because then he would have been a normal dude,
Right.
and all that stuff would have blown up in his face. Where I think it was more of like, well, now I'm just not doing it for him. And then,
Right.
so then when you're not have God on your side, now you're walking the ways of man. You will
Well, and he
you will
even starts-
exceed to where man can go, but
Right.
no further.
And he goes even further than that and starts worshiping other gods.
That part's
He
not
chases-
important.
Right. He starts chasing other gods.
Yeah.
So
Real quick,
abominable ones.
Ms. Freebat, I had a question about the half tribe, and so I'm gonna give you my answer I have on this. It says the term half tribe of Manasseh refers to the tribe of Manasseh, one of the 12 tribes of Israel being split into two distinct groups, with one settling east of the Jordan River and the other on the west side. This division happened because the tribes was so large, and the eastern side offered suitable land for their livestock. A little bit more detailed explanation. It says the tribe of Manasseh, one of the 12, was divided into two groups. Of course, after they entered into the promised land, it says one group of the east of the Jordan, often called the eastern half tribe of Manasseh, settled in the region of Gilead and Bashan, east of the Jordan River. The other group, the western half tribe of Manasseh, received their inheritance within the land of Canaan proper, west of the Jordan River. The division was partially due to the tribe's large size and the suitability of the eastern Transjordan for their pastoral lifestyle. The half tribe east of the Jordan played a role in defending the eastern territories of Israel. It says, but both halves of the tribe of Manasseh are part of the larger narrative of the Israelite tribes and their settlement in the promised land. So basically, they were a big group of people. They got split, and wasn't a bad thing, but like it ended up being a good thing that they were split into two sides. So they both served a different purpose for where they were. So hopefully that helps.
Is the tribe of Manasseh and Ephraim like the same, or are they two distinct separate ones? And if they are the same, is that separation between the Jordan? I think it was.
It's the same, but it's spelled different. Manasseh starts with an M.
Yeah, I mean, they both came out of Joseph, though.
Right.
They're the same tribe. They just
So you think that splitting is like the splitting of like, hey, this is now like Manasseh and this is Ephraim?
No, it says they both were Manasseh, but I don't think it has anything to
One
do
is
with.
Manasseh West Side. There's Manasseh. Ephraim.
So that's all it ever talks about is the tribe of Manasseh.
got you. Okay. Just
From what I
so
saw.
just half of Manasseh.
This half of Manasseh had nothing to do with Ephraim. Unless that was they were part of the same group and just called themselves Manasseh.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But this is, according to this is only speaking of Manasseh. So, don't know. It's a good question.
And verse 22, is that where we get the name of the little Gopher gas station with Bucky?
Bucky.
Becky. You mean Boosie's?
I was thinking it and I was like, ah, it's over.
Yeah, I agree with you. Banana Pharma, wisdom is not intelligence always.
Correct.
Yeah. Ms. Freba says, were they called something different? That would be confusing. You know, ultimately with these guys, this is the part of the tribe of Joseph. And so you had the blessing of Jacob over the two boys. And, you know, so then we have the tribe of Manasseh and Ephraim. And so with these guys, it gets kind of confusing because people say, well, this group's mentioned in Revelation, but this group isn't. I'm not as concerned about that in the end because the Father's got it all.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But ultimately, it's all part of the tribe of. If you want to be technical, it's all part of the tribe of Joseph of the 12 sons. So it's just that his dad, their grandfather, gave them a special blessing, you know, that the other ones didn't receive. So,
Well tried.
let's try 14.
Right.
Yeah, Messianic ways, Shabbat Shalom.
I didn't realize, I guess, that the manslayer stood trial in front of the congregation. I thought that they just stayed there or whatever until the high priest arrived.
You're in verse 20. 20.
35. And verse 20. I don't know why I didn't see that. This is, well, mostly it's supposed to be for an accident, right? You accidentally did it, you go running, and I guess thought, well, as long as you don't leave the city, right, you're okay, and until everybody dies.
You for the revenger, and the manslayer is not to die.
Smite with an instrument.
I mean, isn't that kind of like that whole thing, like you're innocent until proven guilty? So, like, we can't just go out and kill people, or you can't, have corporate punishment until you at least stand trial, or have your. That's where the whole second witness comes in, not
Right.
the whole like, well, where else in Scripture does it say that? Sometimes stuff happened once, right? There was only one flood. You don't have to have a second witness. There wasn't like well, then Noah saw it, but then also somebody else saw it.
Well, when you go to verse 24, it kind of gives you an understanding because what it's basically saying is the manslayer needs to stand trial so they can determine whether or not this was done intentionally or unintentionally. In verse 24, it says, then the congregation shall judge between him who struck someone and the revenger of blood according to these right rulings. And the congregation shall rescue the manslayer from the hand of the revenger of blood, and the congregation shall return him to the city of refuge where he had fled. He shall remain there until the death of the high priest who was anointed with the set apart oil. But if the manslayer at any time goes outside the limits of the city of refuge where he fled, and the revenger of blood finds him outside the limits of his city of refuge, and the revenger of blood executes the manslayer, he is not guilty of blood, because he should have remained in his city of refuge until the death of the high priest. This is what I've said this before in multiple studies, but this is very symbolic of when Moshe kills the Egyptian and flees for 40 years. He doesn't come back to Egypt. God doesn't send him back until that Pharaoh, that original Pharaoh that he was under, dies.
Didn't we just recently see a version of this in either Second Samuel or whatever, where was it whatever was told not to leave the town, and whenever he did, he got killed
Oh yeah.
in a way. He wasn't supposed to leave his house.
I don't think it was the same.
But
Yeah.
similar.
He was like, stay home. He was like, no, I'm gonna go out and do what I want.
And then he-
So the same thing with this guy here. If it was an accident, it happened, but hey, the only way we can protect you is you have to stay in the city. If you leave the city and the guy who's the revenger, if he still has revenge in his heart for you, then he kills you, then it's bad on you. We did what we could to protect you from this, but Yeah.
That is kind of interesting because you would think like, depending on how sour you were in the situation, you go find out where he's at and just sit outside of the gate. Come on.
You step one toe outside this gate.
I live here now. We gonna get you.
But I think too, you have that time where it's about the high priest, but also it gives time for that person who was seeking revenge, time for them to cool off as well. If this,
I think another thing that I've learned just from doing a lot of study is a lot of these examples, they're like super extreme. These weren't common. Like it was not commonplace to stone a child for their misbehavior. It wasn't like the norm. How many times have you read the Bible? This is what you do if they do that. But how many stories do we have of that actually ever happening? How many stories do we have anybody actually having to go to the cities of refuge? Like they were available for you if you need it. But on average, people weren't killing each other. It was part of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not murder. So then if you're not murdering people, you don't need to go to the city. If you're not going to the city, I think it was just a backup plan if needed. So I don't think there was like people standing outside the gate or there was a special police officer of like, okay, you're the guy who murdered. So then you're going to get a GPS tracker and ankle monitor. I think it was like.
right, you're under house arrest for a while.
But I think the first example you see of this is with Cain and Abel. Because when Cain kills Abel, he's like, "You're out of here, go away," and he's marked, aka you can't kill him because you'd be the avenger of blood or whatever. So he's going to go create his own city, which would technically be that city of refuge, and you don't get to come back to Adam and Eve land, whatever that was. So I think that was an early kind of like early version of it.
Mm-hmm.
Adam and Eve. Where did they live? Like.
The Garden of Eden.
Eden. There we go. They lived in Eden, just not the garden part.
Right.
They got the land of Eden.
I think there's some nuance within the story about stoning the kid. I don't think it was an actual kid, but I haven't done a deep study into it.
Well, I was just using that as an example. There's a whole bunch of them like, do this if this happens. And you're like, well, we never hear any biblical example that ever actually happened.
Yeah.
It was like, but if you do need to, the option is available. And you can throw some rocks.
Hey, Hernandez family, I see liberty in y'all. Shalom, brother. You and your family. Hope everybody's getting better. And
Had a bunch of Randy Johnsons back then.
Banana Farmer says, how many
Picture.
thousand laws we have in our government, but can they keep the 10 Commandments?
It's too hard.
Yep.
Well, it's the 9 commandments.
Right.
Mhm.
That was basically the way they treat it, is like that.
Yeah, outside the camp, just did a video on that, talking about with Ray Comfort.
Yep, I saw that. Yeah,
That was good.
yeah.
I don't know if
It's something that gets skirted a lot. Like,
Yeah.
skirt.
Just wondering, and I don't know if we have any answer to this, but looking at the last chapter, talking about how they need to marry within the family of the tribe of their father. How often do we see them go to another tribe? They do that often?
Benjamin had to, I forgot what story that was exactly, but they, like their whole tribe almost died, and they were like, in order to get you back here, take some of our people, and y'all intermarry to build your people back up.
I just mean on a usual basis. I wonder. Since it didn't transfer from tribe to tribe,
Mm.
and this was a special thing to keep it going.
Yeah, I think one that is for preservation, but it is interesting. Often when you see somebody marry outside of the tribe, like so and so married the Canaanite, the Moabite, the whatever. It's like those are one-off stories, and they're like generally come with a little bit of like, who'd you marry again? Why didn't you just marry like the dude down the street 4 houses down that you actually grew up together, that you know their testimony in their life, and you watched them grow up, and you know they're a good person, you know their parents, you guys can make this work. And why would you go way over there like Esau? What are you doing, man? Why would you go way over there when Abraham and Sarah send them to like, hey, or no, Isaac and Rebecca. Well, Abraham was part of the story too, but Isaac and Rebecca like, hey, go to my people over there with Laban because those are our people. So this makes sense for you. Where Esau was like, hey, I'm gonna go get the random lady down the street because it don't matter to me. She looked nice. That's all I'm worried about.
Met her at Burning Man, Dad. She's awesome.
Yeah. So again, this to me, chapter 36 was another good thought of, hey, y'all keep within your clan so these bloodlines stay the way they're supposed to, but then that doesn't work out so well either. So
Wouldn't it eventually become like the royals of England?
you name, well, that's what they claim, a lot of them. So yeah, could be.
Well, so in my humble opinion, I think these are two kind of different. Those are different examples. I think like with the royals and stuff, they're trying to keep it like close knit. They're like brother, sister, cousin.
Right.
It's the same.
They're
within the same tribe. There's a million. There's 400,000. Go find somebody a couple streets down. Don't marry your sister anymore. Go get Bucky's daughter. It's fine. Go way over there, but keep it within this tribal lines, because when they do cross over the Jordan into the land, put the 12 stones down and all that, it's like, hey, go take your territory. And you were supposed to be like a little mini kingdom inside the bigger kingdom. They didn't do none of that stuff. They were all mixing around. None of them, they were all failure to launch. Half of them didn't even go get their land. All this other silliness happened. And then they start getting taken over. Then the 10 leave the 2. And then they start crossing up where Levi and Benjamin start mixing in with Judah. And they all kind of work together. So I think the way it was supposed to work is it was supposed to be 12 kingdoms inside of under one headship.
Because like you said, there was definitely enough people within that where there wouldn't be the possibility of inbreeding or having too close of DNA.
Well, like the royals, they're purposely trying.
Oh, well, just look
How
at
close can
the
they
way
get
a
without
majority
getting
of them look. You're like, hey, something definitely wrong with you, bro.
No offense to
Yeah, they're not. So they don't
her.
get too far.
Got deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't read the stories of like hemophilia and stuff.
What was that?
Hemophilia,
Can you speak that in English?
the
Blood disease where you
when
don't
not
thought
clot,
your
they
blood
would
doesn't
bleed to
clot.
death because they.
Tsar Nicholas's son.
That's what
had it.
happens?
With the royal family, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought these were
Like
deformed.
when,
That's the-
but the
Tsar Nicholas's son had
yeah,
it.
Oh,
yeah.
He has
okay.
hemophilia.
Mhm.
Gotcha. I just knew of the deformities and stuff.
You get blood disorders as well from
Oh,
that. So
Rasputin.
where they would think they're strengthening their bloodline, they're actually destroying it.
Mm.
Yeah. And that's why I think, going off a whole other tangent, that's why I think Princess Diana was brought in specifically because of her bloodline. And not, again, this wasn't we love each other, we will get married. This is like she was brought in for the sole purpose of bearing children because things have gotten really weird with the bloodlines.
All our
So that's
international
my
peeps,
opinion on
we
it.
do go
So
off on tangents. a little bit.
what's
I
that?
said to all my international peeps, we do go off on tangents a little bit.
Yeah. But we won't go off on that one too much because there's a whole lot more to that story. But all right, anybody else got anything else before we wrap it up?
So do you think this is why, like, do you think this was what was referenced with Lot and his two daughters? Of like, that's why they were like, no, we have to stay within our tribe, and our whole tribe just blew up. So we have to continue like our tribe. Do you think that's what was a justification, or was it
Nah,
just?
I think it was just they had spent so much time in weirdness that they didn't.
Well, I
Any
think it
issue with
was that, and I think it was the fact that when God basically took out all the cities around them, the known world to them, what you probably would have thought this whole place is done.
Mm.
And so your first thought is, well, we don't have anything to carry on our inheritance or anything.
Mm.
We have no males to carry on the bloodline, so then we're going to do this. So yeah, I think it was a lot of dumb
Yeah.
going on. So
When you see that played out, and now that I think about it, oftentimes throughout scripture, where you see that idea of like trying to maintain your tribe or your people with like Abraham, when they had Hagar, and like they're always taking into their own hands Jacob, like, oh well, Rachel's not having any daughters, take my handmaid. We need these kids no matter what. And so it's almost like there's this like in there they viewed having children and children like way more important than we do today. They're like, no kidding, it doesn't matter what. Like we're gonna bring handmaids, we're bringing in the extra lady, whatever it takes, we're gonna have children. And I wonder, obviously one of the first commands is be fruitful and multiply. They're like, hey man, we don't got a choice, we got to go make these kids. But then also, if we
It was a
fail,
survival thing.
yeah, exactly. And then they're trying to build. So I wonder if that's God's always using that partially as a test too, because he's like, well, you're not having children, so then you failed or whatever. And he's like, no, it's because I have a plan for you, and you need to trust. And so all these situations are people not trusting. They're like, oh well. God's like, dude, I told you were going to have a kid. Why did you go around it just a crazy way? Hey, you're not supposed to sleep with your dad. That it don't matter if the world's ending or not. That was the wrong choice.
Mhm.
How does that apply to us today? Like, shouldn't we have more people who believe and do like us? Should we be doing that today?
Doing what?
The same thing, like handmaids and all that, or whatever, have as many kids as that have believers.
I think our world would be a different place if all the believers believed and then actually
No,
followed up. Because then
You're
other
not
religions-
asking about having kids no matter what, right? You're like,
Well, I mean, the same thing. I mean, it was survival because they were out wherever, but now
Right.
they having more who are in the faith.
other religions are doing that. They're
Yeah.
they're going out of their way to make sure to go into foreign lands, have as many kids as possible, and change the people and society and the religion. We are
Mhm.
doing the opposite.
Yep.
So I think our impact is going to only decrease if we keep on.
keeping on.
Yeah, I think some of it too is I don't think people realize, the birth rates are so low right now, and not just the United States, but other parts of the world is like, I was trying to remember which one. Me and my son were having this discussion the other day where it might have been Korea or somewhere. They're like 0.6.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, that's a few generations down the road of
Oh,
you
yeah.
just not existing anymore.
Right.
Not
Japan,
a few
China.
generations, that's
Yeah.
this
Japan and
generation.
China
Right.
are both in crisis states right now because they don't have enough children. The average age in I think China or Japan is like 60 or
Yeah,
like
it's Japan.
40. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like their average age.
Right. And what
So-
the people the Bible then understood completely more than people do today, because we're so self-absorbed, is that if you're not having children to carry on your family name could literally die.
Right.
Your lineage, like when I do the family tree, it's like it stops.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, the rule was 2.2 is 2.2
Right.
children to maintain, not to grow, not to
Right.
grow down, just to maintain. So everybody has to have 2 or maybe a little more,
Right.
depending on the average. Every 5 families have to have 2 at least. So when you look at it in that perspective, like you said, Japan.
You're gonna have to have at least 5. So
Yeah,
I mean,
make up
just
for-
telling you, you got to make up for some of the slackers out there. Okay.
But yeah, when you look at in Japan, they just changed some rules where they're like offering like tons of money and housing and like
Yep.
paying off student debts, and they're even bringing in foreign nationals because they used to be very homogenous.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we got to bring in outside people because no matter what, we have to have kids or we're gone.
Yeah.
So they've already recognized it. One of the European countries, I want to say like Sweden, Denmark, Finland, one of those, they were like, yeah, we're offering like kind of what Germany did during the war of like, hey man, like if you have kids, we're gonna hook you up because we won't survive.
Yep.
So
Right.
the world is starting to see it, and they're like, oh boy, if we don't change our trajectory, it's a wrap for
Right.
at least those cultures or those.
It makes you wonder not wonder, but I think I know what their motives are because of everything from our diet to
Oh, yeah.
plastics to we have so many things, so many chemicals in our lives now that decrease the chances of fertility. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So yeah, people are just struggling to have one child, let alone, thinking about 2, 3, or 4 of them. So
especially our diet. If you look into what Harvey Kellogg or whatever his name was, the guy who created the cornflakes, you looked into all the crazy stuff he believed. He was celibate. He was into all this other stuff, and his diet and all the wheat-based stuff that he created was based off of his weird.
I think it's
Yeah.
it's the ploy of the enemy. Like the Bible clearly is like, hey, go have a bunch, and then the enemy's like, don't have any. And guess what? If Christian people, especially Bible believers, don't have kids, look at Europe. They had all. That's where religion and stuff came from. The Christianity. All those churches are empty. No one's, people don't even call themselves religious anymore. They're just agnostic, or we don't have any. We're not atheists. We just don't care. And then so like even in America, we're starting to go that way where people are just like, especially after COVID hit, people are like, I'm not going back. They were like, I'll just do it online. And then like after online, it was like, well, I'm not going to do it all.
Right.
And so they showed attendance has gone down.
Oh yeah.
By giant percentages overall of like how most Americans would still say, yeah, I used to be Christian, but now I'm just whatever.
Well, what's crazy is whenever I broke my back and was in bed for a year, I beat YouTube, and one of the things I was doing was watching internationals and I watched a bunch of Germans and stuff, and they're like, religion's not even like, you have the old heads who are into religion, but that's it. And
Right.
like the younger people, it's not even like they don't.
They don't even grow up with that.
Yeah, it's not even a
Pray for your food. What's
Gnostic.
that mean?
They have to register over there too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they just don't care. That's the thing. So, and that's how it is in a lot of countries in Europe. They just don't care. It's like you have the people who are like devout, but most of the people are just like whatever.
Yeah, it's a pretty building down the street.
Right. Exactly. In fact, a lot of them are being rezoned for other things. All the churches are being deconsecrated and rezoned for other things.
Well, a lot of the ones that I went to were museums.
Right.
They were like, you had to pay to get in and like walk around, and they kept telling you to be quiet.
Yeah.
Silencio. I'm like,
Right.
hey,
And they
man.
had the few abbeys. So.
yep.
Oh, man.
Anyway, all right, guys, enjoyed it as always. Thank you so much. We'll be back here about 5ish with part 7 of the book of John. We're gonna be talking about John 3:16 today, Nicodemus, and hitting some different things. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. So Jonathan, take us out with some prayer, brother.
All right, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the day. Thank you for all the study we were able to get in today, and for sharing wisdom and growing our knowledge, and having just some time together where we can love on each other and talk about the scriptures and sharpen some iron. And so I just thank you so much for who you are and continuing to be in our lives. And I just pray that we are led by the Spirit more and more each day, and we know that we are honoring you in what we do and what we say. I pray those things in your son's holy name, Yeshua. Amen.
Yeah, and Shane, I was about to mention you guys too, because Shane goes, amen. The Hernandez family is picking up the slack. Yes, you are.
Good job, buddy.
Gracias, Señor.
Yes, and for prayers for everyone on there,
Melody,
Miss.
it takes two.
Yeah,
I heard about
for Miss Fariba and everyone else might be having some physical ailments. And Miss Marcia, we just pray blessings over you right now, and everyone that's online with us right now. We pray physical and spiritual blessings for all of y'all's people. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. All right, guys. Love you. We'll see y'all back here at about 5 o'clock.
Shalom.
Shalom.